Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey everybody, good morning. How you doing? It's Monday, August 12th, 2024. Time for yet another show. It's our first post-Olympic program. Always a little sad to see the Olympic Games close. I'm a big fan, even though most of the time is spent saying, "What the hell is this sport doing in my Olympics?" But okay. Anyway, I'm always, as I say, sad to see the games close. I mean, it's, I don't know, for some reason, an emotional moment in the ceremonies for me when I see them extinguishing the flame and handing the flag over, and I like the pomp and circumstance of it. I guess it's procedural. That's why I kind of enjoy it. It really tears me up to see the motion to proceed to the next Olympics be made, etc., seconded by the crowd, everyone who wants to see the Olympics handed over, rise and remain standing until counted, a sufficient second having, the whole thing. They don't actually do it that way, but I enjoy the moment, and it was a great games, and I don't know, I see a parallel in it, because what the hell else am I going to do in the morning? I see a parallel in it to our own situation here at home. A number of them, but not the least of which was, it seems to me, I mean, this may just have been what was, the featured articles as chosen by the editors. They spoon feed you all your news each day, and it works even on us. But the lead up to the games, not the immediate, beginning of the games, but the couple of weeks leading up, even months leading up, so many stories I saw featured about Parisian, I don't know, how do they say it? Parisians and French people of, from all over the place, basically fretting over the hassle that the games was going to bring, and that they didn't want really everybody, all the foreign visitors should stay home. Of course, they probably thought, well, they're all going to bring COVID here, and they did. I mean, we don't care about that anymore, I guess. I don't know. It was pretty rampant. Anyway, but they just didn't want the hassle, the traffic, the security nightmares, et cetera, and they didn't think it all was worth it. I think the worth it threshold is kind of, I mean, even in economic terms, has kind of been surpassed. The games just make so much money, and they can afford to distribute so much of it to the cities than the localities hosting the games. I don't know whether it ever filters down to helping anybody, because that's pretty far removed down the road. Some governments better than that than others. But where it used to be a losing proposition, I don't know if it still can be anymore. But I don't know. I haven't seen the books on this thing. But at any rate, the real point was that everybody seemed to be down on the prospect of having a great Olympics and enjoying it, and thought that it would be a big pain in the ass and ruin traffic for them. And I'm sure that for some people that was the extent of their Olympic experience, because I guess tickets are probably $1 billion a piece anyway. So you didn't get to, get in and experience the exciting part of it. You just dealt with the commuter traffic part of it. But at any rate, in the closing games yesterday, all the cheerleaders for it were out saying that the opposite turned out to be true, that the French, they acknowledged this in the speech. This was the chair of the Paris Olympic Games Committee saying, en français, because I couldn't understand any of it, but it was all subtitled, that they started out kind of as a nation of complainers, essentially, or they saw themselves as a nation of complainers, which might actually be true, but became instead, in the end, a nation of enthusiastic supporters. They had a lot of, there it is, where's my enthusiasm? Yeah, exactly. At any rate, so I don't know. I thought they went very well. It was great traffic around here. All the people went to Paris, and everything was fine here. And as you know, traffic is the number one issue in the Northern Virginia area. And then the handover to Los Angeles, and I don't know. What can I say about that one? I don't know. Mixed feelings about the propriety of the LA production, but I did like the idea that, and then I thought it was good advice that they had gotten from the IOC chair, allegedly, that was announced during the NBC broadcast, that the thing to do is to take the same advice we gave to the Parisians here. Do the Olympic Games your way. Do L.A. Do it in an L.A. way. And so they did, and Tom Cruise, zip-lined off of the top of the stadium, and then, I guess previously parachuted somewhere and videotaped that and then played it as though he had just done it. It was all very Hollywood. And so, seemed pretty interesting. Anyway, so as I was going to say, I thought that the parallel there was we kind of went into this election season as a nation of complainers, and Democrats a little bit down about their prospects in the upcoming election, but been in a very short period of time, and the same period of time, really, and I think the events played off of one another, came away instead with a very positive attitude and looking forward to the election and ready to go out and fight and win and have a good time doing it, too. So I'll take that by way of wrapping up the weekend. The rest of the stuff, news, crazy things that Trump said, et cetera, well, okay, they all happen too, and we'll round them up, and it's a good thing too, because, otherwise I'll just get misty-eyed about the Olympics. Good morning, Greg. How are you doing?
Good morning. Just doing fine.
Good.
It's a funny thing, but people have already forgotten that there were disruptions of the high-speed rail in a terrorist-style attack just prior to the Olympics.
What?
In Paris. So, nobody even remembers that anymore.
Well, I don't know if I ever knew it. So, yes, but now I remember it. Now that you say it, I am creating a memory of you saying it, and there you go. Time has passed.
There were 3 attacks, 2 worked, 1 didn't, and so rail was delayed for 2 days with everybody trying to get into Paris to see the games. And I didn't watch them. You did, which is cool. And what I hear from people who did watch it is that one of the reasons the games were so good, quote unquote, is because the ability to view it was so good, which is to say NBC and Peacock just did a very good job. They didn't delay things and make you watch the events in prime time for them.
Okay.
They let you watch it in real time the way you wanted to watch it.
Yes, for the most part, there was a little bit of weird manipulation of events that I guess had just concluded, and then they had shown them live, and then they wanted, I don't know, whether they technically needed a few minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes of delay. A little bit confusing, but the range of coverage was terrific, and you literally could, on your TV screen with the semi-smart TVs that we have, say, yes, I want to see that sport that nobody covers, and there it was.
Right, badminton and that sort of thing. But the big ticket items, particularly the women's soccer team.
Oh, I see. Yes.
The women's basketball team, powered by UConn alumna. And others.
Had to be.
The track and field stuff.
Yes, right.
Even the pool, even though they weren't as dominant, even the gymnastics, even though they weren't as dominant, they were dominant enough.
Everyone loves those.
And then, coming down to the wire with China as to the gold medal race.
Gold medal for gold medals.
Turned out to be a tie, but we win because we had more silver.
It's not a thing. It is a little bothersome, but that's sort of the modern Olympics for you. I don't think they always used to do that, but in the U.S. we hype stuff like that. Sure.
Right, and the ability
you get a
of
discount on
Australians
a Toyota,
to swim, which should come as no surprise because they're surrounded by water.
Yeah, right, and sharks.
And the funny thing is always, whatever the host country is,
yes,
they tend to do very well. Like the French were doing fantastic early on.
Oh, well, home
and they continue to do well. But, watching the French cheer for one of their own, for example, in the pool, having a star that was trained in the U.S. but competed for them.
Everybody's trained in the U.S.
Because he is French.
We, but yes. He was a huge star.
He didn't do it.
Right,
he did it.
Right. And then,
the
wonderful. Singing was done
great,
by her.
And
how do you like that?
But people like to feel good.
Oh.
And so that's the real parallel with the Harris campaign.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
You come in saying, I don't know, oh, wow, this is great. And that's exactly what's happening with the campaign here. People are rediscovering the fact that winning is fun, losing sucks. And if you win, you don't have to deal with losing sucks. You only get to do the part of winning is fun.
Right.
I happen to think, and I've always
felt, try to take your medal away,
losing is a more powerful downer than winning is an upper. But there's no comparison to you have to choose which one you want to be.
Right. I mean, it's not an amplitude question. This one sucks and that one doesn't.
Right. It's your vote. Your vote counts, whether it's an enthusiastic vote, a double enthusiastic vote, a super secret double enthusiastic vote,
think I even know
or roll your eyes and hold your nose and vote. As long as you vote for Harris and Walz, you're in good shape.
Yes, well, you will be, and you'll be enjoying your time doing it, too.
So, with the election, what's remarkable, it continues to be remarkable, the near seamless way that the Biden campaign became the Harris campaign.
Yes.
And how Tim Walz and the whole vice presidential selection thing turned out to be just a brilliant masterstroke that nobody saw coming.
Well, it was all done by AI, so.
Well, apparently
and
Tim
CGI.
Walz is an AI Midwestern dad.
Yes, right. I kind of like that, actually.
Let's go to the holodeck, shall we?
Make me something that's one part Wilford Brimley and
really,
one part,
Midwestern dad joke, comfortable. Oh, Tim Walz, look at that. He just pops right out.
Well, the Midwest, full of Midwesterners, as it turns out. And no surprise that they would produce one if you reach into a hat. There's a Minnesota nice thing, which is tongue-in-cheek, and then there's...
It's very tongue-in-cheek. That's the way Walz is, you know. He grows on you, and so the more you watch him, the more you say, okay, what a great thing. Now, it turns out the American people agree. And so there was one poll that came out over the weekend that was remarkable amongst a group of remarkable polls.
Let's remark on it.
And one of them looked at the favorability. And whereas Harris was +3, Walz is +11, and the Republicans are in the minus category, which is not surprising. So now they go out on this lightning tour of the swing states. They've done 5 out of 7. They got North Carolina and Georgia to do, but they did the others. And at each one, huge crowds, which gets Trump very upset. We'll talk about that. But huge crowds, and those crowds are being purposed. That is to say, for example, in Phoenix, they signed up 3,000 volunteers, and in Las Vegas, they signed up 4,300.
But then they gambled away 2,000.
And
2,000.
Watching
That's
them,
a good number. Yeah.
You don't like to watch them too often, and you understand why the reporters get jaded really quickly. But when you watch their stump speeches, they tend to be fairly set after a while, and so they sort of say the same thing, and you have an idea of what they're going to say. But this early on, part of the fun part of watching them, firstly, they're blessedly short. They're not like hour-long Trump monologues.
And another thing,
but you get to watch them evolve. And so you see things, they try things that work, they don't work. At the very first one, Walz
free
did a
Hawaiian
couch
pizza.
joke
No, get rid
about
of that
Vance. He dropped that. He doesn't do that anymore.
Okay.
In the first one, Harris had the chance of lock him up, and she shut that down by, waving her hands and saying, we don't do that. But by the end of the 5-day tour, she was saying, listen, that's for the courts. We'll beat him at the ballot box. So she anticipated and incorporated that line into the speech because she knows that that's going to come.
Yes.
And it almost becomes a call and response from the crowd. And so you have the tut-tutters saying, oh, well, we're not them. You should never do that. We're for the rule. Fine. Yeah. But the point is they have a way of dealing with it. And so, it's good. Right. Then the other thing, of course, is the evolution of Harris and the pro-Palestinian protesters.
Yes.
Which in Michigan was roll your eyes and be stern mom and say, I'm speaking here, you'll have to wait your turn, to the next time it happened, which is I hear you, I understand you, we're pro-democracy, And we need a ceasefire as soon as possible, and let's talk about this. But right now I'm speaking, so it was respectful, but, worked and moved along. And again, I think we said this the other day, those remarks weren't for the people in the room. They were for the people at home, and they absolutely positively work. So what happens is you look at the polls, you find her continuing to rise in the polls. The so-called honeymoon that the New York Times said was over isn't over. As an example,
they were wrong.
The Financial Times had a poll over the weekend. Who do you trust more in the economy?
That would be in their wheelhouse.
Yes. Yeah. Who would you think would be the answer there?
Who are they asking me? I trust Harris and Walz more. I'm public.
The general public.
I'm a colonel in the public. I'm rising to level. Let's go look.
Let's go look. For the most part, all along, it wasn't Biden.
No? Oh, well, I heard he's not
Trump
running
on this question, but for the first time now, a Democrat lead since the survey began. It's now Harris 42, Trump 41.
I see it in the
We
lines.
understand that Democrats always do better for the economy because we're the ones that have to fix the mess Republicans leave us every single time. We get that.
Yeah.
But the general public does not. They generally will rank Republicans on the economy, crime, and immigration higher than Democrats no matter what. And so it's just fascinating to see this change. And why does the change happen? And I think I have a going theory that there's two reasons for this. One, of course, is that it's driven by partisanship. If you want to see what partisan non-response means, it means that when you're depressed about what's going on, you tend not to answer the poll. And that's the Biden era in this poll.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden your side gets excited. The Trump numbers stay exactly the same. It's almost a straight line. And all of a sudden the Harris number just shoots up like a shooting star.
It really did.
That's because Democrats are excited about it. They're now answering the polls. And so in that regard, part of this is a partisan deal. And part of it is something else, which I think is a little deeper. And that is that people are sick and tired of COVID, like you mentioned with the Olympics. Nobody talks about it. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's trauma. Like 1 million people died, including people you probably know. And so, they don't want to think about it. And they don't want to think about those days. And they don't want to think about Biden and Trump being old. And they want to move on. And they want to look at the future. And Harris is part of that. And Trump's going to get swept into that wave, except in a negative way for him because he's part of the old.
Yes.
And so some of this shift to Harris is, I'm sick of all this stuff. Let's just move on and start over.
Yeah. Well,
which
it
is
could
what
be.
people do when they, up their roots from Europe and move to America. And, it's always been that way.
Everywhere around the world.
And so let's look at this place as an enlightened, wonderful place to be and look at the Olympics and rah-rah. And,
right, and we're getting them.
That. So when you watch the rallies, they're starting, especially with Walz, who's there as the table setter. Walz is the Midwestern, we love our country, USA, USA chants. And so, it's our flag, it's our patriotism, it's our Olympics.
Hug it.
You can't have it. It's ours.
All right.
You're the dark dour, you hate America. We love America.
Yeah.
Come with us.
This is going to be, to bring it back to the Olympics, both Trump and now I realize Vance, too, sort of have a long history of really being down on the Olympics and doing the thing you're not supposed to do, like booing and rooting against American competitors in the Olympics. And now they're coming. By the way, in case anyone was wondering about who they should vote for and still listening to this show, we could not afford to have Donald Trump, the hater, as the president of the United States when we host the Olympics. The world won't show up. They won't be allowed, for one thing. I imagine Trump greeting the refugee team? No. He'd be telling every team is full of rapists and criminals. This is not going to work with Donald Trump.
We want them here so we can immediately deport them.
Yeah, right. Hey, everybody, you beat an American, we're going to arrest you. Just all of this. There's no way he could be in charge of this in the way that every other politician in the world has been. You smile and say welcome.
Let's just say he doesn't represent the Olympic ideal.
No. And in the meantime, and on top of all of his inability to do the smile, welcome, open arms thing, unless you're working for him at his restaurant or something. He commits the cardinal sin, right? He's criticizing Simone Biles. She's no good. J.D. Vance is criticizing her. She's the hero of all America at this point. They don't like the women's soccer team, champions again and again and again, because they make everything political. And if there's anything anybody wants when they're watching the Olympics, is to put that aside. And he intrudes on it, and it's horrible.
So Kevin Durant grabs the American flag and says, "This is our effing flag."
Okay.
And that's my response to Trump.
Yeah, basically, right. Don't you hug that thing,
ours.
by the way. Don't you put your lips on that, you. Right. Send the big guys. We have some very large people who oppose Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So in any case, things go on. J.D. Vance is terrible. His stalker
Vance.
Stint, trying to follow Harris and Walz around didn't work. So now they've moved on to trying to smear Walz in his military service.
Yeah. I think they got bored of that pretty quick.
You can see it's not working. I have to, and I sent them to you. I have to read the sequence with Eric Erickson, who is hosting a conservative confab right now, which is part of the reason why he does this.
Hosting. What am I doing? Where's my confab?
So he writes on Twitter, "At this point, the GOP has so devastated Walz, I wouldn't be surprised to see Josh Shapiro show up at the DNC as their vice presidential pick." And this is so stupid that you just you step back a moment and say, what is he talking about? But the funny part is all the conservatives answering him. I'll just read you a couple, but there's dozens. Okay. A guy named Robinson says, "Come on, get real. I can't stand Walz, but we barely touched him. Try to have some credibility." Somebody's named Afix writes, "He really doesn't know how ineffective the attacks on Walz have been, and the GOP is going to keep going with him. It's so wild how incompetent GOP strategists are now."
Ooh, all right.
Peter Fox writes, "Actually, all you did was prove his point on the weird stuff."
Yeah,
this is the reaction you get.
Okay.
So, no, it's not working.
No, I don't know what that was supposed to be. I did see that circulating and just saying, I guess it's really of a piece of with Trump saying, Biden's going to come back and take back the nomination. All right, sure. And Shapiro is going to switch with Walz because everybody, what?
So your choice now, door number 1 or door number 2. You want to talk about the piece about you can see the fear in Trump's face, or do you want to talk about the memo to the Trump camp on how the Walz smear isn't working? We'll do both, but which one do you want to do first?
I want to do one first. 2 is we're still on that subject, but can we do one anyway? Can I have the ice cream first? Fear in Trump's face. I like it.
Okay, let's do that one. So this is Steve Beschloss writing on August 9th, a couple of days ago, after his press conference.
Yes.
Right? And as far as the press conference go, we have a funny columnist, Colin McEnroe, a local Connecticut guy, who often writes really good columns. He just has a turn of phrase. And he wrote one for Connecticut Insider, which I have in the pundit roundup, called "What the Great Gatsby Taught Me About Politics."
All right.
And basically, what Great Gatsby taught him about, what F. Scott Fitzgerald taught him about politics is the last line of the book. As F. Scott Fitzgerald put it, "We beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past." And if you're trying to make sense of that, basically what Gatsby taught Colin McEnroe is that Donald Trump didn't just fall out of a coconut tree. He exists in the context of all in which lives and what came before him. And so the idea here is Trump is just totally mired to the past.
Mired in, okay.
Faulkner style, right? The past isn't even the past.
Right.
He's still living.
Dementia style also, as it turns out, but I think this predates that, yeah.
Right. So McEnroe writes about the weird helicopter story and Willie Brown.
Yeah.
And he says Harris trolls inevitably cite her 94-95 relationship with California politician and power broker Willie Brown, sometimes even calling her a homewrecker, although Brown and his wife had been separated for 13 years by the time Harris dated him.
Seems like a while.
But Brown is back in the news this week after Trump, during a rambling take away his car keys news conference on Thursday, claimed he nearly died alongside Willie Brown in a helicopter crash. We now know he didn't. Willie Brown was never in a helicopter with him. As Willie Brown likes to say, listen, I talk about everything. You think if this happened, you wouldn't already know about it? It turned out it was a different black politician, different helicopter, entirely. Different state, different day.
Time, day.
And as the other less well-known figure said to Willie Brown, we all look alike to him, so he can't really tell the difference. So it wasn't Jerry Brown that he was confusing him with.
Right.
It was another black politician.
Yes. Right. That was the first time speculation, and that would have been bad enough. But this, of course, actually worse. And there's a lot to make fun of him about on that one. But
right. So Steve Beschloss writes, you can see the fear
yes.
amid the joyful and growing enthusiasm for the Harris-Walz ticket.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's press conference at Mar-a-Lago exposes his growing fear that he's going to lose. Well, and as he starts to lose, he starts to lose it. And he gets more and more crazy with the, Biden's going to secretly come at the convention and take back everything that says, and then I'll get to run against him like I always wanted to. Or that Harris doesn't have bigger crowds than me. It's all AI generated, like the 7 fingers in most of the pictures I put out.
Right, yeah. Or accidentally using Nazis and pretending they're American troops.
Right. In the first minutes, Trump lied that Harris had worked to drive Biden out, that the highly popular Pennsylvania governor and possible VP pick Shapiro is deeply unpopular, that Harris, who was a Jewish husband, hates Jewish people, and that his new presidential opponent is not only dumb, she's dumber than Biden.
Yeah, that'll teach you.
Did I mention Trump thinks he's much smarter than his opponent and claims to lack the confidence to conduct a media interview because he's out there talking to the media looking like a nutcase?
Yeah.
That's basically the thrust of the article. He's afraid. He's crapping in his pants.
Good. Well, he was already doing that. But I'm glad to see it being done out of fear. It's a step forward. It smells the same, but it's a step forward.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. A little chat during the break. I am I was reminded by a couple of articles, and then Greg prompted me. The helicopter story that we just mentioned going into the break, that developed into a disaster for him over the weekend. You know what, though? In the scale of Trump disasters, it's not such a big deal, but that whole thing fell apart, even though he's pretty sure he's still going to sue people about it. But I was reminded that the Times trying to come up with something, which is weird. I mean, I sort of appreciate the idea of, well, should we try to make sense out of this? But they're so busy whitewashing it all the time. It disturbs me what they eventually do with the research. But they did ponder whether he was maybe confusing Willie Brown with Jerry Brown, which is actually super generous in that it's Brown and, that's it. That's all they looked at, as opposed to, he's confusing black guys. Yeah. But he did take a helicopter ride with Jerry Brown at one point, but it was to inspect fire damage. But also, keep in mind, he was the reason he was on the trip, president of the United States at the time. If the helicopter crashes, you will find out about it, and you will remember it. But imagine this guy saying, "No, I remember everything well. I'm going to sue you for having a bad memory." Marine One goes down and nobody writes? I don't think so. Anyway, that was the press conference, which I remembered when I saw a video of it, as the one where he's saying he toured the fire damage, and he's insisting we've just come from the town of Pleasure, the beautiful town of Pleasure. It was totally destroyed, Pleasure. And then Jerry Brown, this time, who's with him, accompanying him as governor, is standing to the side. And his funniest thing in the video, his eyes cast down. He's like, I don't want to look at the camera and acknowledge that I'm here with Donald Trump. But we've just come from the town of Pleasure, and Brown just can't help it and just says, Paradise. Name of the town is Paradise. Paradise, Pleasure, yeah, there's a P word. I had a couple other ones in mind. But anyway, yeah, so I remember it from that, and then Greg reminded me, oh no, this is also the one, even better, I think, more famous. You were saying this is the one where he said, we ought to rake the forests the way they do in Finland, and then this would never happen, even though it wasn't a forest fire. But a lot of people remember it that way as well. If you don't remember the Jerry Brown incident coming from the town of Pleasure, which everyone names their towns Pleasure.
Well,
no problem with that.
But it turns out it didn't happen.
Nope.
None of it happened.
Totally different helicopter ride. And by the way,
see what happens when you become a dementia person. When you start losing it, you start conflating this event with that event, and they merge together in your mind. So we took the New Jersey, almost went down in the helicopter with one guy, merged it with the California never went down, and with the other guy as one helicopter event that happened, and he's convinced in his own head it really happened, which is why he was so angry with the New York Times. Some of this you think is posturing because he wants to get back in the news. Some of it is actually all in his head. Yeah. And the thing that I don't understand is that given that his mental status, given what they did with Biden and his aging issues, why Trump's mental status and his delusional hallucinations, which is what this is, aren't more prominent, I don't fully understand.
No, I don't know. And when this happens with a parent, you know what's happening.
You take the car keys away. That's why I thought Colin McEnroe's column was just so brilliant.
You're right. That's exactly it. This is the sort of thing that triggers at least your first thoughts of, something might be different here. These events are 35 years separate and under extraordinarily different circumstances. What he's latched onto is helicopter, and therefore the two events are the same.
So what do we, been there, done that, and so I know. You see an event like this and you think to yourself, where are we going right after this, and is it safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why you take the car keys away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I say that as though I'm downcast about it. No, yay, take the car keys away.
Take the car
Never
keys away.
let him
So
get in your car
meanwhile, while all
again.
this is going on,
Harris
and Walz are having their triumphant tour.
Yes.
Okay, new polling comes out. We mentioned some of it, I think, last week. We had the MU law poll with Charles Franklin showing Harris up by as much as 8 nationally. We had the New York Times Siena poll showing in the swing states, the big 3, the blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, Harris is leading by 4. A partisan YouGov poll came out over the weekend in North Carolina, Harris 46, Trump 46. Bill Scher noted the average swing state margin in nonpartisan polls with at least partial August samples, which is to say after Harris took over. Arizona, Harris +2, Michigan, Harris +1.7, Wisconsin, Harris +1.4, Pennsylvania, Harris +1. That would be enough to win. Nevada, a tie, see that Nevada rally. Georgia, Trump +2, North Carolina, Trump +3, but see that North Carolina poll I just gave you. If the election were today, assuming Maine and New Hampshire single EV votes go the way they normally do, Harris gets 281 EVs, Trump 251, toss-up 6. My point is, it's no longer rational, fair, or accurate for media to keep with the narrative in capital letters that, this is Trump's election to lose, and he's in the process of losing it.
Okay.
He's losing,
that part was good.
And he's in the process of losing it.
Yes. And when we say losing it, it could be any number of things.
Right. But Sarah Longwell had a whole piece that she devoted to simply raw statements from her focus groups, reactions to Tim Walz. They love him.
Okay.
These are the double haters. That's who she follows. And, it really does make a difference. Meanwhile, Democrats have raised $500 million, $500 million on Act Blue since the day Biden withdrew.
All right.
That's a crap ton of money.
Yeah, everybody's getting paid at Act Blue anyway. That's good news for them.
So what she's done with Walz is remarkable. They've not only united the party, they've activated the anti-Trump coalition.
Yeah.
And so that's really, really, really important. Or as Tim Walz might say, and if you see his stump speech, you'll know what I'm talking about. Wow. Wow. Just wow. He says that as he walks out to the thunderous applause.
He's not seen, that's true. He's not used to that kind of crowds. That's cool. And
it's just fun. It's just fun watching Midwest Ad do all of these things.
And by the way, that $500 million that got raised, the Democratic campaign on the whole can be counted on to pay its bills, which means that the rest of us, a lot of us are getting paid. It means that
you can land at the airports you wish to instead
of too.
Like going to Montana and wanting to have a rally in Bozeman, but you have to land in Billings because you haven't paid the airport, so they won't let you land.
That's going to be increasingly a problem. The $500 million, though, a lot of it is going to go back into our economy as opposed to into a, Russian bank account, let's say.
Right. And so MSNBC actually had a graphic on that.
Oh.
And they showed, I'll see if I can find it for you so I could give it to you, but they had a graphic of the country singling out particular cities and areas where Trump just owes a tremendous amount of money.
No-go zones.
And it's like there's 20 of them across the country where he simply hasn't paid his bills. So Deadbeat Don and the weird guy, his sidekick, are simply not keeping up with Joyful Mom and Midwestern Dad. And this is part of the reason why. So here is the graphic. Let me just give it to you so you could see it. And, if anybody's paying attention, Kenny Akers writes as he tweets this, the Trump Vance campaign is currently at a standstill. While nobody's offered a definitive explanation, I'd wager it's connected to Trump's outstanding debts to several cities from past campaign rallies. So that's part of the issue is that he's a little reluctant to hold outdoor rallies. They're cheaper, but, people tend to shoot at him when you do that. And so he has to go indoors, but he can't because he owes the venues that he would normally go to a lot of money, and they won't let him in.
Man. So,
but
I'd like to have
to run the country, and he's a great businessman.
That's
because Republicans always do better on the economy because they run business people, and business people know how to do business.
Need a businessman in the White House. Not outside the White House. Someone should shoot him.
Of course, Tim Walz again has the best response to all of that. Oh, really? I got some business for you. Mind your own damn business. Now, he's talking about reproductive rights, which the Republicans think is a non-issue. And of course,
nobody cares
about it. But he might as well be talking about business. He's better at business than these guys are.
Yeah. Okay. I would accept that.
He hasn't been cited for fraud.
Right. I mean, it's a low bar.
He didn't run a college that was a scam. He was an actual teacher.
What? Oh, no. All these things. Well, he didn't. He didn't. There's a litany of Trump violations that hardly anybody has had the opportunity to commit, all of them in the past. And he's a unique individual in that sense. You know what? Do you have if you have handy the link to where the map came from? It sounded like that excerpt was a good one, too. I might want to read through that whole report because that's funny. It's amazing graphic. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
It's a screenshot of MSNBC, so I don't know if there's anything to read, but here's the tweet that it came from.
Okay. Well, I'll start with that. But
if anybody's paying attention, Kenny Akers writes, the Trump-Vance campaign is currently at a standstill. While no one has offered a definitive explanation, I would wager it's connected to Trump's outstanding debts to several cities from past campaign rallies. These unpaid balances could have funded vital services for blue-collar workers and city employees, including police, firefighters, and medical personnel. According to data compiled in 2019 by the Centers for Public Integrity, more than 12 cities are still waiting to receive these funds from the Trump campaign. So Centers for Public Integrity 2019 is your Google search, and you could probably find the link.
Yes, and by more than 12, They mean 13. Well, at least that's what's on the map here. I don't know why they can't say 13, but maybe they don't know
notice
exactly
the biggest
how
one,
many.
Washington, D.C., where he owes $9 million.
Well, they should not let him back in at all, period. The $9 million
that's the country's decision.
Has to be, well, I don't know. I guess so. The home rule has been undermined by the Republican Congress ever since. But it would be interesting. I mean, they'll be hypocritical about it. He can't come in until he's paid his bills. You're for that, right? Yeah, not when it's Donald Trump. When it's you, we're for that. I see. But Spokane, Billings, Green Bay, Burlington. That's the northern tier. Minneapolis, Erie, Pennsylvania. Eau Claire. And how do they say that? I don't know how they. I'll have to check with a Wisconsinite here. Mesa.
It's pronounced Harris Country.
Okay. Yes.
She was just there.
Right. Okay. Washington, D.C., as you mentioned, Lebanon, Ohio, not Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Albuquerque, Tucson, and El Paso, all with outstanding bills because of something, whether it's security, is it airport fees, it's all of them, I don't know. But, yeah, he leaves bills all over the country, and a lot of campaigns are late in paying things, but he's like 10 years. He's not going to pay, and yeah, I mean, I guess to the extent that these cities have any control over things like this, they'll say, please don't come, or no, you can't have a permit. And I guess eventually airports can say, you can't land here. Get out of here.
So the next three articles I have, just to illustrate how things are going. This one is from David French, writing in the New York Times, to save conservatism from itself, I'm voting for Harris.
All right, so he says
I mention this because, again, in our quarters, in our circles, among our peeps, there's been a lot of discussion about never-Trumpers, you can't trust them. Turns out never-Trumpers are the most stalwart
or they say
of the anti-Trump vote.
We might believe them, but they do. All they're doing is saying it right now. Soon they'll get a chance to vote.
They're not very good when they try to diagnose the Democratic Party in regards to who we should have as vice president and who we should run. However, they don't care.
Yeah, okay.
Like, look, we thought you should have Shapiro. He's conservative enough to make us comfortable, but that's all right. Walz is all right. The point is, vote against Trump. And they're all like that.
I'll take it.
And we'll take it. Exactly.
Yeah, we have to. And I mean, what else are they going to do, right? They're conservative people. They're going to say, well, we're not going to vote for Trump, so it would be a great help to me if you nominated someone I liked a lot. And you're not going to, well, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Well,
cast the ballot. We'll never know. It's a secret ballot.
I'll vote for anyway, but fine.
But you got to say something, then say the right thing.
I wanted them to have an open convention and chaos, but fine.
Yeah.
Because if they had
I don't know if I saw a never-Trumper say that.
Out, if they had that open convention, we still would only begin to get Harris as the person next week. And we wouldn't be having these 5 rallies where you can get 4,000 volunteers at and all the Harris momentum and the $500 million. That wouldn't even happen yet because we don't have a person. So the open convention, picking somebody was a stupid idea.
It always was. Even if it was earlier, it would have been done.
Yeah. It's working out beyond anybody's wildest expectations, which they now admit. And they say, okay, fine.
All right.
David French is a good example of that. I believe life begins at conception. He says, if I lived in Florida, I'd support the state's heartbeat bill. I'd vote against the referendum seeking to liberalize Florida's abortion laws. I supported the Dobbs decision. While I want prospective parents to be able to use IVF, in vitro fertilization, to build their families, I do not believe that unused embryos should simply be discarded. I was a pro-life lawyer who worked for pro-life legal organizations. I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Or as people point out to me, it's pronounced Kamala, not camel like in camel, but Kamala.
Yes, that was cleared up a while ago, but
I just, it slips out as I New York accent every once in a while.
Right. I think you can attribute it to accent.
I'm doing it part to try to save conservatism. Here's what I mean. And he talks about, which allegiance do you owe a party, a movement, a politician when it or they fundamentally change their ideology and ethos. He talks about opposing Russia and supporting Ukraine, the level of threat against public issues, trashing the Constitution. All of those, if you'll excuse the expression, trump his views on reproductive rights. They just do, and so he's voting for Harris.
Well, yeah. I mean, I understand the logic.
Who else is voting for Harris? Harris, in terms of just getting people together and making this a vibe, making this a thing, making this an internet meme, is having all of these groups vote for her. White dudes for Harris, that sort of thing.
They have Zoom calls,
which of course reminds me of the old Nixon stuff. Nixon had a group, Pretty Girls for Nixon. He had Irishmen for Nixon. He had Lithuanians for Nixon. There are all these campaign buttons you can see, which are residue of those times. But now we have my favorite,
politics,
which is right-wing nut jobs for Harris. That's going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be led by none other than Jesse the Body Ventura.
Right-wing nut jobs.
Endorsed Harris and said, "I'm doing this for a number of reasons, not least of which Hulk Hogan is an asshole." He said, when we were in the the wrestling world together, I tried to get the WWE to form a union, and Hulk Hogan cut the knees out from under me by ratting me out to Vince McMahon. I hate that guy. He's anti-union, and it's no wonder he's a Trumper. I'm not. I'm for Harris.
All right.
Okay, fine. Look, if that's what you need in order to go talk to the Joe Rogan crowd, so be it. Now, by the way, not only did Kyle Rittenhouse say I can't vote for Trump, I have to vote for RFK Jr. or something, even if he changed his mind 24 hours later under pressure. Rogan also said, I really like RFK, and Trump started denouncing Rogan.
Yeah.
So,
I like
Trump really is losing it, and it doesn't matter that they denounce or renounce or go back on this and say, no, stop picking on me. I'm okay. I'm voting for him. You're going to have those. You have Betsy DeVos, who's his education secretary, who said that Trump's awful, but I'm voting for him anyway. I mean, you have people who do that. You have the Kristen Nunes of the world, who clearly don't have any principles. They're only out after power. It just exposes them. That's fine. The Jesse Venturas and the David Frenches of the world are far more important, because if you split the conservative vote between those two camps, we win.
Yeah, all right, and I'll take it. Do it.
Take it. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, they're pretty horrible people. I mean, I guess you kind of expected of Betsy DeVos, but I don't care. She's terrible, so good.
Right, anybody who...
What's Rex Tillerson doing?
Nikki
Who's
Haley.
Rex Tillerson?
These are all people who are awful.
Oh, Nikki Haley will vote for him.
Who say he's a terrible person, but I'm voting for him anyway.
Yes.
We get it. We understand. You're just exposing who you are.
She would take another cabinet position under him.
That's what DeVos said.
DeVos would as well, but
she just said openly, I would work for him again.
I guess she's gross. But she was always an evil, but now it's exposed.
Disney,
whatever.
That's all. It's just villain. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. That sort of thing.
I was saying, I think Nikki Haley, after having said all she said, would probably still take a job.
Who would?
Because there's no other job. Well, yes, that's because
he said again over the week, I'm not voting for him.
Okay, yeah, it's good that he's got a memory of he was trying to assassinate me. I don't know if Trump remembers that he tried to do that or not, and he might. It would be funny. I bet that if Mike Pence, for whatever reason, said, "I want back in. I love Donald Trump," Trump would say, "Great. I didn't try to hang you. It was awesome."
Well, my point is, split that vote.
I love it.
I get that on the one side there's going to be the DeVosses and the Nikki Haleys of the world, but on the other hand there's going to be the Mike Pences, there's going to be the David Frenches, there's going to be the border town mayor in Arizona who's a Republican who spoke at the Arizona rally who says I'm voting for Harris. Split that vote.
Yes, and as you have pointed out before, if it's a 50-50 election and you lose part of your 50, you lose.
Exactly. So, again, if you step back and look at the big picture, Trump is not recruiting more people than he got in 2016 and 2020. And unfortunately for him, some of his oldest voters are no longer voting for reasons.
Yes.
And so, if the youngs are going to come on board, if Gen Z and others are going to come on board, because like Harris is the new exciting kid on the block, that's fine. And, part of what I said on Twitter over the weekend is that part of the reason that Trump won is because he was the new kid, vibes, sort of. Celebrity dynamic in 2016. But he's not anymore. That's Harris now.
Wasn't
Harris,
in 20.
on those criteria, are beating him like a drum. And so now the media is all upset because the environment that they created by elevating Trump because of those things is now working against them, and they're really pissy about it, and they keep yelling at Harris, "You're not giving us press conferences. You're not talking about policy." And Harris says, "Okay, fine. You want to ask me a couple of questions? Go ahead." "Okay. What about Trump's press conference? What do you think about Trump?" "Enough about me. What do I think about Trump?"
Right.
And she said, "And you want me to have more of this? What are you, nuts?" "No, I'm not doing this." And so media has created their own problem with no insight as to why it's a problem, and they don't understand that they're no longer that important, and they don't get to direct and decide what's important and what's not important. The New York Times can declare Harris's honeymoon is over. It's not. Not according to the polls, not according to TikTok, not according to the voters. And, fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, fine. Don't be that way. If you would like, I want people to feel good about themselves and the positions they've chosen. What you could do is switch sides and be a Harris supporter, and then you will be happy to report all of the news that's actually news, and you won't have to fret about it.
In fact, Republicans have been complaining about, those young voters, all they know is somebody's popular, and they just want to be with the popular person. Well, the popular person means that, they're getting more votes than you, so they're winning and you're losing. So what you're really saying is they don't want to be with a loser. I get that. Thank you for confirming it. Let's, fine.
Okay.
Let it be that way. Fine.
Yeah, that's okay. And if it's a downer for the press that Trump is losing, become a Harris fan, and then you'll be happy.
So let's wrap that up with E.J. Dion's column. Harris is beating Trump by transcending him. The vice president and her running mate are achieving a radical shift in messaging. Choosing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate reinforces the move away from cliches about coastal politics and cultural elites. Instead, she wants to fight in specific practical measures government can take to improve lives, from family leave to expansions of health coverage. Wait. I thought she wasn't talking about policy. Does anybody doubt where she stands on reproductive rights? You have to have a press conference for this? Why? So the press conference can ask her, "Trump said something really stupid about reproductive rights. How do you respond to Trump?" No. Yeah. We already know what her policies are, the important ones. And besides, that's not the point anyway of elections.
Yeah.
Elections aren't won on policy. How many times do we have to say this during the length of your run on podcasts? We have said this forever.
True.
Both Harris and Walz, PJ writes, are speaking a soothing and, to pick up on Democrats' favorite virtue these days, joyful language of patriotism and national unity. USA chants at their rallies. You could tell the Trump campaign was thrown off by the Walz pick when the GOP's vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, attacked the camo-wearing, gun-owning, small-town Midwestern school teacher as a San Francisco-style liberal. Guy hadn't even set foot in San Francisco until about 2 months ago. Never mind that Vance lived in the Bay Area for about 4 years himself, while Minnesota's Walz visited the place for the first time only last month. The tired misfire speaks to how dependent the GOP is on stereotypes about who liberals are and what liberalism means. Trump and Vance want liberals to be Ivy League educated people, which, by the way, describes both members of the Republican ticket.
Crazy.
And neither of the Democrats, who did not go to Ivy League schools.
Right.
Who look down their noses at flyover country. Walz is from flyover country, if you want to put it that way. And the disrespect values of small towns and the countryside. Walz is from there. Yeah. They absolutely do not want to deal with liberalism that extols community and freedom, which are the words that they use at these rallies, and favors a government active in areas where most voters favor more public action. All the ink spilled about who's a centrist or liberal pick for the VP job lost track of the fact that while Walz is indeed the second kind of liberal, he's the very antithesis of the first, the variety that Republicans love to parody. And Walz just handles this so well. Oh, you want to call me a liberal? You think feeding kids is liberal? Okay, I'm a liberal.
Yeah, right.
What the hell are you?
Boo-hoo. Well, he's correct. And, of course, it helps to be centrist by being from the center of the country. Like, sometimes it's just that simple. Even Ohio is not really in the center.
Right. The contrast, and by the way, there's New York Times reported there's internal polling showing Trump is less than 50% in Ohio. It doesn't mean he'll lose, but it's just indicative of the fact he really is losing. He understands he's losing. That's why he's so upset. That's why he's losing it being his mind.
Okay.
The contrast Harris is trying to bring home was underscored last Thursday in dueling appearances by the two nominees standing amid the Volk's guilt, G-I-L-T, although it may be the other guilt, of his Mar-a-Lago hotel. Trump, who's largely been homebound at a crucial point in the campaign, and still is, talked about himself. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me, bigger than Martin Luther King.
Well, you're big,
bigger than
that's
Jesus.
Not what you mean. Yeah, right.
Meanwhile, Harris was in Michigan at a UAW local flanked by Walz and Sean Fain, the union's visionary president, while Mar-a-Lago Trump called the United States a very sick country. Harris spoke in actual populist language about patriotism. And so, you have the contrast between the two, and Harris is the patriot.
Yeah, well,
and that's why the rallies are just so refreshing. Yeah, it's stump speech stuff. In fact, Trump got so upset and nothing was sticking and nothing was working, so then they accused Walz and Harris of saying the same thing over and over again.
What?
As if they were unfamiliar with the concept of a stump speech. And, of course, it took Pete Buttigieg to point this out to everybody in a way that even the media could understand, right?
Yeah.
And he points out J.D. Vance is terribly concerned about precision in speech and honesty in politics.
What?
Also, he wants you to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, that can't work.
Right? And then somebody else said, they're repeating the stump speech? You mean like Hannibal Lecter, Mr. Lecter, Hannibal Lecter.
The late, great, and also not alive, Hannibal Lecter. And let me tell you, nobody does it quite like him, repeating himself over and over again. All right, well, welcome to campaigning. Welcome back to the week. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Greg, for catching us up. We'll speak again on Wednesday. Win some more. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Now what? Right? I don't know. Well, first thing I could do is rate the quality of the call with Greg Dworkin on Skype, and I never know. Sometimes, are they only doing this? I'm sure they're really doing it at random, but maybe they're trying to say, that was such a good segment, you should rate it. Of course, they're talking about the call quality, which is fine, by the way, and you're doing a great job, Skype. And, I think I once tried to actually give them a rating, but they don't just let you back out of it. How was the quality of this call? 5 stars. Hold on a second. We need 20 more minutes of more questions for you about why it's 5 stars. And I think I backed out of it last time, and that was probably the reason. So, okay, the call was great. Anyone who's working at Skype who hears this can take that back to the desk with them. Pat yourself on the back. A job well done, maybe. You might have not had anything to do with it. I don't know what you're working there, But anyway, hope you enjoyed hearing that everything was fine. So there's lots to catch up on. And Greg and I just, again, chatting over the break and saying, if you want, you could just go read Trump's Truth Social posts and drive yourself crazy. He really is losing it online. Well, he's losing it everywhere. But it's starting to worry Republicans how committed he is to the bit, I guess. If there ever was a bit that he was obsessed with the crowd size or whatever, he's now fully committed to the right wing's latest conspiracy theory freak out, which is, and again, you have to cross out litter boxes in schools. That's not a thing. CRT. Yeah, I don't even remember anymore. That's how old it is. That's out. The litter box thing is out. Trans panic is out. Whatever else they were. Collapse of the economy, et cetera, et cetera. Gas prices, that's all gone. But the latest freak out was, we mentioned it, that Trump well, I don't know who started it, but I saw it from Dinesh D'Souza, of all people. He's actually still alive and saying things in public. Was they saw a picture of a rally. I don't even remember which one it is, what airport they landed at. Air Force 2, lands at the airport. They have a rally. What rally is it? You probably know. I don't. It doesn't matter. Big crowd at the rally, and they are certain lunatics on the right made themselves certain, pretended that they were certain, that the crowd wasn't really there. It was CGI/AI. Now everybody just says AI. It's fewer letters. AI crowd generated. They put it in there. It was an empty airport. Nobody was there, et cetera, et cetera. Dinesh D'Souza was circulating this thing, and his evidence was that it looked to him like the reflection off of the side of the plane, the engine of the plane, the fuselage of the plane, didn't show the people who were evidently there to see the deplane. And I mean, I guess maybe to the home amateur detective that might be of interest if you were inclined to believe that. I don't know. The physics of it are, I don't know what would actually be reflected in the plane anyway. But there's also, there's a considerable distance between the people and the plane, and it doesn't look like it from the still shot over the head of the crowd. But anyway, the real point is that there's multiple pictures, multiple video feeds from different angles all over the place, and that they're staking it all on there were literally 0 people there, and the whole thing is fake, like the moon landing is fake kind of people, right? Saying that this rally, in fact, all of the rallies are fake. And, you see that from time to time among the craziest crazies on the right, Dinesh D'Souza included. I mean, that's not like that's not his crowd. And he's basically saying there's no people reflected in this reflection here, so therefore something. But of course, He's got problems with optics and photos and photo analysis. His whole book was based on erroneous photo analysis, 2,000 Mules. And I guess that's what happened to all the crowd. Like the 2,000 Mules, they all disappeared suddenly. They were withdrawn for no particular reason, i.e., I think, did we read to you over the break the evaporation of his claims and the evaporation of his publisher's support for the book and movie, and they withdrew the whole thing. You can't sue us for defamation anymore. We no longer, we've done what we need to do. We don't believe Dinesh D'Souza or his claims or his interpretation of the evidence. Now here comes Dinesh D'Souza with more claims and more stupid interpretation of photo evidence. So you expect it from idiots like that and, the various garden variety nut jobs. Apparently, by the way, among them, Ian Miles Chong, who's a pretty reliable right-wing lunatic guy, he is out there saying the rally happened. I don't know whether he was there or whatever, but I saw it on TV, whatever it is. But stop saying it didn't happen. You make us look like idiots. You hurt the movement. And I mean you, Donald Trump. Don't do this anymore. It's stupid. And that's kind of remarkable. I'm sort of looking forward to the attack on Ian Miles Chong, which I presume will inevitably follow. Anyway, I just thought that was pretty amazing. The Washington Post has a write-up on it. Trump falsely accuses Harris campaign of fabricated AI crowd photos, which is, I guess, all that newspapers are willing to say anymore. I mean, it's right in the headline, Trump falsely accuses. But they should, even that is still sort of dancing around it. And eventually, I suppose, someone, well, they really won't. But certainly, the time is well past. I think a newspaper that takes the position of Trump's crazy. He's an idiot, and he's dangerous because he's such a crazy idiot, and we can't let him anywhere near the presidency. Honestly, he really shouldn't be babysitting children, shouldn't be left anywhere with a gas stove, all these things. Take away the keys, nuclear codes, what have you, right? This is no way this person can be trusted with this, and even if he is allowed to, even if he's surrounded by advisors. The problem is he's selected advisors for craziness factors, and that too has to be taken away from him. But the newspapers still play the old game. We can't do this. We can't say this. We'll end up getting sued, or we'll end up losing our credibility. And it's old rules stuff. And I understand why you want to cling to that. You're hoping for a return to normalcy someday, but I don't know if we're ever going to get it. Meanwhile, 30 years, the other team has been, doing all the things you can't. You can't just say that the other candidate made up the rally. You can't just say that drinking your fish tank medicine will protect you from a global, pandemic. But he keeps doing the can't thing. And the newspapers stand around and think you can't, and think that they can't, and they continue not to. But and it's in an effort, to maintain credibility. And I would argue to you that whether it makes any sense or not, whether their logic makes sense or your logic or nobody's logic makes sense, they're doing the things that are supposed to maintain their credibility and have not maintained their credibility. So I don't know what to tell you. But at any rate, this is not the worst. Trump falsely accuses Harris' campaign of fabricating AI crowd photos. And again, this would all have been referred to as CGI probably at some earlier date. But now we think it's AI. I don't know. That has caught on as the abbreviation for something that you would use to, CGI is fine, right? You don't need any kind of intelligence, artificial or otherwise, to create this thing. Although, interestingly, I guess when we keep saying, well, AI will replace people or put people out of jobs, or you can replace working, paid staff jobs with AI. So far, the only thing, well, even they don't replace it because they're just not doing a good job. But the only thing people are using to replace jobs is they're replacing CGI technicians with AI. Instead of saying, hey, what would be the name of your CGI technician? Hey, Fred, I don't know, or Ashley, we'll say, I don't know, the CGI technician, I want you to take this photo and put some crowds in there. Now we say, hey, Google, or whatever, I would say, hey, Siri. My Siri is turned off, so I can do that. Otherwise, it would be talking to you during the show. But as a matter of fact, hey, Siri, why don't you finish the show? I could do that. AI should finish this show. That would be a way to... Anyway, but they now say, make me a photo with this. Start with this, and then put a crowd in there. And, it screws it up, and everybody's got 11 fingers and stuff, which is why you should not fire your CGI people if you want to make a movie and you want it to look convincing, even though, generally speaking, you're generating aliens, and they may have 11 fingers, and there's really no reason not to. Anyway, but I guess they're thinking it maybe puts people like that out of work, or you don't have to hire. They never were in work, at least not for you. I don't have to hire a person to Photoshop, as we used to say, I guess, crowds into it. Now I can, hey, Siri me a crowd, or whatever they call it. The various chatbots will make it for me. Anyway, that's not happening. And yet we've talked about it for 20 minutes. In the days following President Joe Biden's announcement that he would step aside as the Democratic nominee, conspiracy theorists and far-right influencers have promoted a number of falsehoods targeted at the Harris campaign. So says, or at least so titled, is the piece written by Ariana Yunjung Cha. Best guess. Hope I did well. Former President Donald Trump, did I pronounce it right? Trump, falsely claimed on social media, Sunday, that a crowd at a Michigan, thank you for answering that question, Michigan rally for Vice President Kamala Harris, Kamala, did I almost New York accent that one? I said we trying to get it. We do try to get things right. Last week, and here, there's the quote, and in all caps, didn't exist. Nobody was there, and that the photos of the event were fabricated by artificial intelligence. They really go all the way there. I've seen the crowd was enhanced, and as always, every Republican accusation is a confession. As I recall, there were several instances in which Trump, who is obsessed by crowd size, did have somebody, not CGI, not AI, but Photoshop. They would, duplicate sections of crowd, and then people would say, here's the same guy 5 times in this crowd. So, it's an easy call to make for them to say that they enhanced the crowd. But no, he goes all the way and says there was literally nobody was there. The crowd didn't exist. The whole thing is fabrication top to bottom. And even Ian Miles Chong is upset about that. In the days following President Joe Biden's announcement that he would step aside as the Democratic nominee, conspiracy theorists and far-right influencers have promoted a number of falsehoods targeted the Harris campaign, very much echoing the subheader. But Trump's repeating of the false claim about the crowd size and the photos with multiple posts on his Truth Social platform is a notable escalation. Has anyone noticed that Kamala, I'm sure he would try to say it wrong, Kamala cheated at the airport? That's all caps, cheated. There was nobody at the plane, and she AI'd it and showed a massive, quote, crowd of so-called followers, now all caps, but they didn't exist. The Republican nominee for president wrote on social media. Trump continued, she's a, all caps, cheater. She had, all caps, nobody waiting, and the, quote, crowd looked like 10,000 people. Same thing is happening with her fake, quote, crowds at her speeches. This is the way Democrats win elections, by cheating, all caps there, cheating. And as others have noted, notably this morning I see Greg Sargent touting his latest podcast about it too. They discussed this. I mean, I think it's pretty plain. A lot of people are talking about it, but that language is indicative of it. What they're doing, obviously, is saying, well, she's actually historically unpopular. She's, in fact, historically popular. And so they can say, this is, I think the idea here is, and Greg Sargent agrees, that they'll be saying, well, okay, when Trump loses the election by 8 million, 10 million, 15 million votes, whatever it is, he will say, well, for one thing, a lot of those votes were illegal aliens. And another thing, it's all cheating. And the reason we know it's cheating is I don't know anybody who voted for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is historically unpopular. There's nobody at her rallies. Well, there's thousands, tens of thousands of people at her rallies. Yeah, but they're all fake. You think but there's really 0 people there. They're photoshopping in everybody. They're photoshopping. They're importing photoshopped bamboo paper ballots from China. And, this is the groundwork that he's hoping to lay for claiming that everything that the Harris-Walz campaign does is fake. Their votes are forged, the crowds are fake, etc. Mind you, this is a guy who, at this point, certainly people in his campaign caught red-handed. It's, I guess, because we believe in a court system and evidence and preponderance, not preponderance, but evidence beyond a reasonable doubt when we're talking about criminal convictions. We haven't gotten there yet, but what's the reason why so many people work together to forge electoral college certificates and just fake winning the presidential election? That's nuts. And it's not working. Let's sack the Capitol to try to push it over the line. There's nothing crazier. In fact, I have said it a number of times, and I know there are people who are not fans of the conclusion, but in other countries, certainly in other times, that guy is shot at dawn on January 7th. You can't do that. That's among the most egregious things, violations of public trust you could possibly have. Short of actually starting a shooting civil war, there's just no... It's actually a short step. I don't know. So anyway, of course, so he's been caught before faking the crowds. He's certainly been caught before bragging wrongly about the size of the crowds, and now he's setting up this whole thing. Sure, the lying newspapers say that she got 15 million more votes and 25 to 90 more electoral votes than me, but that's all fake. It's all fake. All the people were fake. It's all forged. Don't believe it. And that's either, or both, either just unhinged crazy or a confession or a hint at what they're going to claim when they come around to the realization that they've lost again, or all 2/3 things, if those are 3 different things. And I don't know what to say. You should be on the lookout for it, but everybody knows that. And the papers are kind of forced to treat this as it's just another day of Trump being Trump. I mean, he's not dropping out, so we can't report that. We can't say he ought to drop out because reasons. We have to remain objective. And I don't know. We can hint that he's falsely claiming it, but we can't seem to, get permission from whoever it is to say that's dangerous lunacy. He can't be allowed in public. It's elder abuse to keep milking him for donations. He should have been put in protective custody a long time ago and been under care for dementia or advancing, who knows what you want to call it if you don't want to put the dementia label on it. But instead, what can we do? We'll just wait for him to put out some position papers and then say policy doesn't matter anyway. So back to the Washington Post. There were, in fact, thousands of people gathered when the plane arrived at the airport, and there is no evidence that news organizations altered photos using artificial intelligence or anything else, for that matter. There is also no evidence that Harris or Democrats more broadly have cheated to win elections. Despite Trump's repeated false allegation that the 2020 presidential election was rigged, and his claim, by the way, that the 2016 presidential election was going to be rigged, but then it didn't get rigged because somehow he was declared the winner, and so therefore it's not rigged anymore, unless it is, in which case it was rigged in a good way. Those are not conspiratorial rantings from the deepest recesses of the Internet. David Plouffe, who chimed in here. Oh, I've skipped this small paragraph here, introducing the fact that he's actually speaking. He is, of course, senior advisor for Kamala Harris for President. It's an organization you may have heard of. And he expressed his concern on Twitter, the social media site that the other right-wing lunatic would like you to call X, about Trump's comments. What does he say? These are not conspiratorial rantings from the deepest recesses of the Internet. The author could have the nuclear codes, he did for a while, and be responsible for decisions that will affect all of us for decades, including possibly nuking hurricanes, which he apparently considered at some point. And last time somebody stopped him. So there you go. The event last week at an airport hangar in Detroit was live streamed, widely attended by the media, including the Washington Post, and many attendees posted their own pictures and videos showing a packed venue. Local news outlet MLive estimated that 15,000 people filled the hangar and that the attendees spilled out onto the tarmac. Mallory McMorrow, a Michigan state legislator who was at the event, tweeted photos noting that, quote, you can just see the throngs of people outside, unquote. No, you can't. So, yeah, here he is, or Mallory is, responding to Trump. There's the screenshot of Trump's Truth Social thing, then a link to one photo and 2 videos showing lots and lots of people and saying, what? Here's my view from inside the inside corner of the hangar where you can just see the throngs of people outside, the plane after the rally when I was able to walk around to see it, and some scenes from, very many? There's a word missing here. Very many people and me. So, I don't know. There's one person who was there, plus the newspapers and television stations. What can I tell you? It happened. On Sunday, the Harris campaign rejected Trump's comments, writing on Twitter, just please. This is an actual photo of a 15,000-person crowd for Harris Walz in Michigan. Trump, the GOP nominee for president, astonishingly enough, for years has been focused on crowd size as a metric of success, which was never actually sensible in the first place, but he's still focused on it, which is weird. He has repeatedly taken to social media to boast about how the size of the crowd he could draw, and last week asserted at a news conference that, quote, nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. Chester Arthur was bigger than you. He's spoken to a crowd, but I see. You meant the large size of the crowd, not the size of the speaker, and even so. You're wrong about that. We've been through it already. Trump has previously claimed that audiences for the speech he gave in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, the day the mob stormed the U.S. Capitol, eclipsed the numbers who attended Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, despite photographic evidence that it did not. Trump has regularly been challenged by fact-checkers and opposition groups for elevating discredited allegations, repeating unfounded rumors as fact, or grabbing onto conspiracies, especially when under political threat. In 2016, he falsely claimed President Barack Obama was not born in the United States and did not attend Columbia University and wasn't black and wasn't president and wasn't here and was Martian and the moon landing was fake and that Trump's taxes were audited because he was Christian. It's a lot of audits going on. That vaccines are connected to autism and that climate change is a hoax. In 2020, he refused to advocate for wearing masks during the coronavirus pandemic. That a big topic of discussion over the weekend, too, by the way. And promoted unfounded claims about purported risks. That's a very clean way of putting it all. The Washington Post fact-checker team in January 21 noted it logged 30,573 untruths during his presidency, averaging about 21 erroneous claims a day. Somebody just did an analysis, I think, was it NPR, of his press conference from the other day, saying that he lied, misstated, whatever you want to use, catch-all terms, twice a minute for an hour, that he did something like 67 problematic statements, or I don't know. I mean, twice a minute gets you to, I don't know how they did that, but okay. At any rate, he lied an awful lot in the press conference. I mean, this is the constant refrain about this guy, right? Trump's focus on crowd size has also become something the Harris campaign has used to poke fun at Trump about, while at the same time bragging about their own crowds. I understood that I had seen in passing that the campaign had possibly started their own Truth Social account, which I assume they're going to lose pretty quickly, but using it to, for lack of a better term, tweet photos of crowds, and bragging about crowd size directly to Trump. So that's kind of funny. Let's see. Tim Walz on Friday night, looking at the audience in Arizona, the Democrats estimated at more than 15,000, quipped, it's not as if anybody cares about crowd sizes or anything. Sunday afternoon, the Harris campaign released a statement describing a crowd of more than 12,000 Nevadans at a rally over the weekend, one of the largest political rallies in modern Nevada political history, and then described previous audiences as including 14,000 plus in Philadelphia, 12,000 plus in Eau Claire, 15,000 plus in both Detroit and Arizona, at least one of those cities listed among the 13 from which Trump might be banned because he just hasn't paid any of his bills. At a fundraising event in San Francisco on Sunday, Harris appeared to address Trump's social media accusations indirectly. The energy around the country is undeniable, Harris said, adding, the press and our opponents like to focus on our crowd size. And yes, the crowds are large. But even better, she said, attendees are signing up for volunteer shifts by the thousands. And that's where crowd size can make a difference, of course. People who come to see the freak show and then go home, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Right. Okay. So what was it? There was something we were reading along the way, and I said, "Oh yeah. That's reminds me that we should." Oh well, that's gone. That thought has come and gone. At any rate, it's what can I tell you? It's crazy out there. All right. We'll go back to Pocket and see if I'm reminded of what it was that I was thinking of that I wanted to bring to you. Oh yes, right. The COVID things. That's right. Somebody made an interesting suggestion, and of course, because it was made on social media, there was debate back and forth as to whether or not it was a good idea. But on Blue Sky, Greg Dworkin, whom I follow and who you may as well, captured this from, I don't know, looks like maybe it's is it a Facebook place? And the poster is identified only as ADOTSAD, ADOTSAD, or ADOTSAD, or I don't know how you would pronounce it and what it's supposed to mean, but the suggestion was an interesting one. Walz, he apparently, it's a cartoon avatar, reads as male. Walz almost got there with the Hunger Games line about Trump during COVID. I didn't hear the line, but I can well imagine what it might have been, and I see what he's talking about. What does he mean? He says, Walz almost got there with the 100 grams line about Trump during COVID, but they need to hit the point harder. Once I just want a Dem to say, another one of those wish list items. And the script that he gives is, folks, for most of you, there has been only one time when you've walked into a grocery store and were told the store was out of toilet paper, out of eggs, out of baby formula. This is what he puts. And there's debate back and forth about whether that's the smartest list. And that was when Donald Trump was president. He froze during the only national emergency he ever faced and left you to fight your neighbors for basic household items. I like the idea of it. Yeah, he actually took the greatest country in the world and turned it feral. People were fighting in the stores for the last rolls of toilet paper, but empty shelves. He said it didn't exist. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. So yes, as we were leaving, inopportune moment, I guess, for the break. But yeah, that was rather an amazing thing. One, to be reminded of all of that. And interesting to watch critiques of the strategy. There were others who were saying, like, for instance, good idea, but there was a baby formula shortage in 2022, too. As well. It got fixed pretty quickly, but that's a wide open, clean hit if you're leaving. And everyone, I think, remembers that. And yeah, there was a brief baby formula shortage, and not unrelated, by the way, to Trump's handling of COVID early on, which it's all there if you want to read through the history of the thing. And then, of course, he does acknowledge that it was fixed pretty quickly. And that's the difference, isn't it? But, yeah, more to the point was swap out, I guess, baby formula for anything else you want. But, I mean, you could have gone on for quite some time here. But remember, for most of us, there's been only one time in our history when we've walked into a grocery store and we're told the store is out of toilet paper, out of eggs, out of paper towels, out of Clorox disinfectant wipes, every brand, not just Clorox, disinfectant wipes, hand sanitizer, of course, yes, but milk and cereal and canned goods and all sorts of things. Trash bags, masks could not be had, along with hand sanitizer, but any number of staple items. I mean, my recollection is, and I remember this pretty well, and somewhere there's some photo evidence of it too. I would get to the meat department and there were signs that said due to shortages and stockpiling and whatever. From now on, customers checking out will be limited to one package of meat per family. I mean, rationing meat out of milk, out of eggs, out of toilet paper, out of paper towels, out of tissues, out of cleaning products, out of canned food items. I mean, there were empty shelves in a lot of departments. Not everything. So it wasn't like there was nothing for sale in the supermarket. You know, we weren't that stricken, but there were definitely gigantic gaps. And then products that just because of supply chain problems disappeared eventually. Not because people were stockpiling it, but I mean, one of the weird things that we watched that was quirky because it was part of our shopping list. One or both of the kids used to really enjoy Hawaiian Punch in cans. They like to drink their beverages out of cans for whatever reason. They want to have some aluminum in them. And you could not find it after a while. They just stopped. I mean, there was problems at the supply chain up and down, but like Hawaiian Punch in cans didn't come back for ages. I mean, literally for years, there was no Hawaiian Punch in cans. They loved the Minute Maid lemonade at the time. That was not available in cans. Canned beverages really suffered. They never ran out of Coke. You can't do that and still be America. But the niche products were just gone. And I remember that very clearly, and I remember certain cereals were gone and all kinds of things. And I mean, you have problems from time to time with one product or another, recalls, etc., but nothing like this. And I remember it very well, and I remember also very well having to scramble, hopefully, I mean, it was a little bit ahead of time because we got the heads up from the news, from reading the news and talking to Greg and just understanding what was coming, that we should be stocking up. And I went and did it. And by the time Trump was willing to announce, okay, fine, people should stock up on food, it was too late. The shelves were empty. And that's not even to get to the PPE stuff, which was just flat criminal. These are some of the places where I thought, you know when it came back to mind? When that kid shot Trump, maybe, in the ear. Whatever happened, he fired a gun at Trump. Trump's ear was wounded. Debate whatever you want about what happened there. I thought that was going to happen in 2020 when Trump was using the federal government to seize shipments of PPE from, in many cases, blue state governors who had jumped through hoops, who had, pulled every personal string they could to charter a jet, to fly to Taiwan, China, Japan, Korea, wherever they were still manufacturing or had gotten around to trying to, on an emergency basis, manufacture N95 masks for the medical staff, not just for people on the street, for the medical staff that were caring for people who had COVID and everything else, and then bringing it back and finding the federal government somehow stepping in, seizing the shipments, not to send them to Walter Reed or to VA hospitals or federal facilities or World Health Organization research facilities or anything like that, but to hand them over to Jared Kushner and his friends to resell elsewhere, and in particular in some of the red states where the governors were refusing to do anything about preparing for COVID and dealing with it and getting PPE. And suddenly they had PPE, which had been seized from blue state governors that had taken some initiative. Or sometimes they were just shipped back overseas and sent to other countries, which, I mean, I defy you to explain that in Trump logic. Anyway, meanwhile, just on the subject of empty store shelves, one, everyone needs to be reminded of that. An amazing amount of trauma from COVID has been memory hold, and I can understand some of it when you talk about, coping with trauma. But the fact that there's a presidential candidate who, one, was in charge during this, two, blew it entirely, three, was never going to be able to handle it in the first place, and four, now says that none of it ever happened. But I noticed as to the question about, or the issue of empty shelves, I remembered it, and I went looking for, did I ever send out on Twitter? I think I did, but I wasn't able to locate that. I, snapped pictures of when the paper towels aisle was empty, the toilet paper aisle was empty, and commented on it. And, this was like, this is what everything that they told us was happening in Soviet Russia because communism was now suddenly happening here, despite the hyper-capitalism that apparently America had voted for. He's a great businessman, but he can't put toilet paper on the shelves for whatever reason. And, I didn't find it. But what I did find just the other day, as a matter of fact, was a tweet from Yamiche Alcindor, the now, by the way, assigned to the job of covering the Kamala Harris campaign. So maybe she'll see it and say, oh, yeah, right, I remember that. That her tweet was back on March 21st, 2020, and saying that she had just heard President Trump just said, quote, we don't have empty shelves. So not only did we have empty shelves under him, but he told people we don't have them. And he also said, maybe you don't need a mask. Maybe you don't need a vaccine. Maybe you should drink your fish medicine. Maybe you should eat your horse medicine. Maybe you should shine a light somehow inside. Maybe you should find a way to get disinfectant of some kind into your lungs. Huff the Clorox, whatever, it's only poisonous. Go ahead. Anyway, we don't have empty shelves. And she just answers, fact check. Here are her pictures. She snapped pictures too, because it was such an astonishing sight. Here are my pictures that my husband, Nathaniel Klein, took today in Virginia. He couldn't find paper towels or bread. There are definitely empty shelves across the country, and there certainly were in his backyard in Virginia. Nathaniel Klein, I don't know what he was doing at the time, but I noticed in his Twitter profile that among his credits is for the working for one of the Loudoun County papers. So he may very well have been in the neighborhood photographing the same empty shelves as me, although they don't look familiar to me. But at any rate, yes, we did have empty shelves. Yes, he did deny it, and he never knew what was going on the whole time. And then, right, all the other things he said. But in a time of crisis, when America and the world were in crisis, he told you, don't wear a mask, because it might smear his makeup, but he gave you some other dumb reason for it. And we should all be back in church for Easter. We should do it. We should do it. It would be so beautiful. I mean, in April of 2020, he's saying, everybody jam yourselves back into the pews, because it'll be so beautiful. And he lies throughout the whole thing, and I'm smart, and I know what I'm doing, and we're stealing PPE from one another, going totally feral on one another. Then he, months later even, catches COVID himself, almost drops dead from the COVID. They didn't know what to do with him at the time. They rush him off to Walter Reed, where the doctors, again, fail the trolley problem and save his life, not knowing how many people were going to die by putting this idiot back on his feet so that he could go out there and tell them, F medicine. Don't listen to those idiot doctors who saved my life, except to the extent that he stopped and filmed himself outside the White House saying, I've just discovered the cure for COVID, and we're going to ship it to people all over the country. The vulnerable seniors are all going to get it for free. Now, this was an interesting point. My recollection is that there were 2 such videos, but I might be wrong about that. It could have been Jerry Brown, could have been Willie Brown, could have been someone completely different. I don't know whether I'm confusing things or what, because the record is so weird. And so much of it was created on Twitter and then erased for a while he was banned, and then he was reinstated, but not all of the things came back. And so it's very hard to tell. And I don't, it wasn't any kind of an official thing. Oh, that'd be an interesting question. Was it an official video? Did the Presidential Records Act mandate its preservation somewhere? Did he violate or does the video I'm thinking of not exist? I'm pretty certain that he did a short one and a longer one. The longer one was in a sunnier location out on the South Lawn, in which he's saying, my beautiful seniors who I love so much, they say you're vulnerable, and you are. You're not vulnerable. You're the least vulnerable. But for this thing, you are vulnerable. And so am I. I'm a senior. Maybe you don't know. And he goes on, and he does say that everybody's going to get, access to this beautiful cure, which, of course, was a lie. But my recollection is that there's one with poorer lighting that's made earlier, maybe even the day before the one that's still in circulation, in which he says that it was his intention to go inside immediately. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going inside and I'm going to sign an executive order directing the military to distribute this miracle drug to all of our vulnerable seniors. And I just thought, I was saying this, I still think is one of Trump's most depraved acts, even if he's not including the military in it. The idea that in October, right before the election, and maybe even just weeks before early voting starts, I don't remember this. So I remember the date that he did was October 7th, 2020. I don't know when early voting started back then, but to go out in the middle of the pandemic that is still to this point believed to be, mostly dangerous to and targeting seniors, to go out there in the most reliable voting bloc, but the most scared voting bloc, and to go out there and say, I'm going to give you a miracle cure, I'm going to have the military bring it straight to you for free. They're all their biggest fears and all their biggest saviors wrapped up in one. He's going to do it. The military is going to bring it to you. You can always rely on the U.S. military. The President of the United States says it free. He can do this because, one, he's got the power of the government behind him, and two, he's a billionaire. He could pay for it himself if he wanted to. He's definitely going to make this happen. And then he, pulled the rug out, went inside and did nothing. Played golf and did his best to get his respiratory health back, and then went on to cheat his way through the campaign and then stage an insurrection. All of that got attention, but none of the promises. Really one of the sickest things he could have done. This the most frightened, most vulnerable population that we have, and he told them exactly the lies that were designed for them to believe them, so that he could get their votes, and then do nothing for them. I don't know. I believe we should be spending some time remembering these things, because it's astonishing how many people don't remember these things. Okay, that's a topic that happened over the weekend. Perhaps you heard about it, and I thought I might share with you that news. All right, there's a couple of other crazy things that have happened that, I don't know. Do we want to? Which one do we want to get to? There's a ton of them. By the way, one point I'll make that I think I made over the weekend that Marcy Wheeler has addressed as well. In case you're still wondering about the stupid helicopter thing, right? I just want to point this out. Okay, so yes, we may be missing the point in all of this, but we're trying to figure out who's on the helicopter, who wasn't, et cetera, et cetera. There's no point to this story unless Willie Brown is on that helicopter, right? So it's of no use to Trump. That's why he's now, I'm going to sue you, and why he keeps insisting that Willie Brown definitely had to be there. Why did Willie Brown have to be there? Why is this an important story? It's not, but what he's doing here is he's trying to get everybody to believe that he had occasion to have, if not intimate, then very personal conversation with Willie Brown. Why? Because, as he said earlier, Willie Brown dated Kamala Harris at some point, I guess in the 1994, 1995 time frame. The helicopter ride he thought he was remembering happens 5 years before that, 4 to 5 years, about 1990 by most people's reckoning, and of course involved someone completely different. And I do have some information about that, and I guess we got to do that anyway. The point of it is, I need to be on this helicopter with Willie Brown, because Willie Brown, it's so memorable to me. How do I know that he told me these things? Because we were in this life-altering situation together, the helicopter crash. We almost died. So I remember like it was yesterday, except I don't. And in that time, during that flight, not when we were crashing necessarily, but beforehand or during the day, Willie Brown spends his time telling me horrible things about Kamala Harris, who thinks he knows because he's dating her at the time, which he was not. And he wasn't there. And he wasn't going to be telling Donald Trump horrible things about Kamala Harris. He would have said that about, and he would have said, who? You're dating what? I don't even understand. What? I don't know who that is. And he wouldn't. And maybe Willie Brown in 1990 didn't either, but it doesn't matter because he wasn't there. The whole point of the story was it was supposed to be a premise whereby people could believe that Willie Brown had told him horrible things about Kamala Harris. If it's Jerry Brown and he can't tell him things, it's a useless story. If it's Kobe Bryant, it's a useless story. I mean, other than claiming, proximity to famous people, nothing. There's no reason for the story except what he wanted to do was use it as a launching pad to say, I know horrible things about Kamala Harris, and he maybe just plant them. I think he wanted to use it as a counter to the couch meme thing. People will believe anything crazy that they make up. Okay, fine, I'll make up some things about Kamala Harris, about whom I heard horrible things from a person who, as it turns out, nope, wasn't on the helicopter. So it's not going to work. But judiciously as we do, we are examining who was it on the helicopter, to which there is an answer. But yes, both I and Marcy made this point, as entertaining as it is to investigate these things. And I'm going to do it because I'll give you the facts, because, you got to know the underlying facts of this thing. But ultimately, the point is he was trying to get around to it being an excuse for him, a reason for him to have insider information about Kamala Harris. And this connection never existed. So to the extent that he wanted to tell you those things, he's going to have to find a new excuse to bring them up. So what's the story that we learned? Politico got the news. Somebody called him and told him, hey, I was the guy on the helicopter with him. The other black politician who says he was with Trump in that near fatal chopper crash. Even though the URL says Trump plane crash, California, it is in fact Trump helicopter crash, not crash, emergency landing, New Jersey. But whatever, right? It did involve someone from California, and for reasons. Former Los Angeles City Council member and state senator Nate Holden, that's the name of the guy we're talking about here, said in an exclusive interview late Friday that he remembers the near-death experience. Well, he should, too. It was a near-death experience, and I was with a famous guy, so he remembers it. So what's the story here? Well, I don't know. Christopher Cadalago is a reporter, and he knows the story, so it goes like this. The man who almost crashed in a helicopter with Donald Trump, that close, told Politico Trump confused him with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, despite the former president's repeated insistence it was Brown. He's going to sue you for saying it wasn't Brown. Well, it wasn't. It was Nate Holden, a former city council member and state senator from Los Angeles, who said in an exclusive interview late Friday that he remembers the near-death experience. Well, he and others believed it happened sometime in 1990. Willie is the short black guy living in San Francisco, Holden said. I'm a tall black guy living in Los Angeles. I guess we all look alike, Holden told Politico, letting out a loud laugh. And you know how Trump feels about people with loud laughs. Holden, who remembers this despite the fact that he is 95 years old, he's clear on it, was in touch with Trump and his team during the 1990s. When the flamboyant Manhattan developer was trying to build on the site of the historic Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Holden represented the district at the time and supported the project. In the interview, Holden said he was watching Trump's press conference on Thursday when the former president claimed that Brown was aboard during the white-knuckle helicopter ride. In fact, Holden says he met Trump at Trump Tower en route to Atlantic City, where they were going to tour the developer's brand new Taj Mahal casino. In the lobby at Trump Tower, Holden says he was greeted by several people as senator, salutations that miffed the host. Why? Because it was true, and it was a black guy who looked more important than Trump all of a sudden. He said, I own this building, but nobody seems to know who I am. Holden remembered the mogul saying, but that's okay, Nothing bothers me, but that's okay. But I'm just going to obsess about it. Holden recalled being a bit worried about the helicopter ride because it came not long after 5 people, including 3 high-level executives of Trump's casinos, were killed when their chopper crashed in 1989 over Forked River, New Jersey. And I don't know if anybody says Forked River. I'm from New Jersey and I don't remember. But anyway, it doesn't matter. They'll call me and tell me later. But Holden says Trump told him they were in good hands, noting that he had 2 capable pilots. He tells me, look at the sky, Holden said. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. I'm not certain what that's supposed to mean, but maybe that means no rough weather. Well, anyway, also aboard was Trump's late brother, Robert. He didn't die in the crash. He died from something else. The attorney, Harvey Friedman, and Barbara Reyes, Trump's former executive vice president of construction and development. Reyes told Politico on Friday that she also remembers the ride very well. In fact, she said she wrote about it in her book, All Alone on the 68th Floor. Now, by the way, mind you, Trump says that that he wrote about it in one of his books as well. That was apparently the coffee table book, Letters from Trump, which is, just what it sounds like. Letters that he wrote to famous people. And I think he must have written one to Willie Brown. And in his book, he says, I have basically says he has a special relationship with Willie Brown because he remembers very well that they almost went down in a helicopter together. That's his proof that it was Willie Brown, that he once said it was Willie Brown. He was wrong when he said it, but he did say it, and so therefore there's the proof. Well, proof doesn't work like that. Anyway, Barbara Reyes remembers it, and she wrote about it in her book, and she remembers Brown, by the way. He took a liking to her, and she brought him a hat from the super yacht, the Trump Princess, which she says he loved. But the man on the helicopter was definitely Nate Holden, she said. And on that ride, she said the pilots started feverishly maneuvering the equipment as the chopper lurched over the water. From the corner of my eye, I can see in the cockpit, and what I see is the co-pilot pumping a device with all his might, Reyes wrote in her book. Donald Trump and Robert Trump were reassuring Holden. Very shortly, that sounds good. He was in control. That's a good story, right? Very shortly thereafter, the pilot let us know that he had lost some instruments and we would need to make an emergency landing, she wrote. By now, the helicopter was shaking like crazy. After considerable turbulence, they landed safely in New Jersey at an airport where Trump had his commuter helicopters stored. Within an hour, they were in Atlantic City. So they just got on another helicopter. Holden and Reyes had a nice lunch at the casino, courtesy of Trump, and went back to New York. We may not have gotten much business done, but it sure as hell was memorable, she wrote. Over the phone on Friday, Reyes said Trump liked to tell a joke about Holden on the helicopter. Ready for the joke? You turned white, he said. Isn't that funny? When did he turn black? He always used to say he was white. It was just because he was scared from the helicopter. I see. You turned white, but she said, by the way, that it was Trump's face that was white, and then he started painting it orange. I guess that's why. He was white as snow, Holden added, and he was scared, let's say, less. Guess what's in there? All right. When asked for comment, a Trump campaign spokesperson just referred to a paragraph in a New York Times article about the incident. And I guess this is the article paragraph. Trump has also told the helicopter story before in his 2023 book, Letters to Trump, in which he published letters to him from a number of people. Okay, I thought it was letters from Trump. It was the letters that he sent people, which is an even dumber idea for a book. Well, one of the letters, I guess, was from Willie Brown, and in the book, Trump wrote, "We actually had an emergency landing in a helicopter together. It was a little scary for both of us, but thankfully we made it." It's just, he was mistaken then as well, so that's not proof that you see what I mean? I mean, Trump is literally saying that book is proof that Brown was on the helicopter. It's just proof that in 2023 he was still mistaken about who was in the helicopter. That's all it proves. Reyes and Holden spoke on the phone Friday night. They sometimes reminisce about the ambassador project that could have been. That's the story, okay? Reyes said, no Willie Brown. Holden also connected with Brown on Thursday and said, I said, Willie, were you almost in a helicopter crash with Trump also? He said, no. And I said, I was the one, Willie. Before he hung up with Politico, Holden assured a reporter that nobody discussed, let alone criticized Kamala Harris, as Trump claimed Brown did. He either mixed it up or he made it up. This was just too big to overlook. This is a big one. Conflating Willie Brown and me? The press is searching for a real story and they didn't get it. You, who I called Politico, did. So now you know. And I mean, again, that wasn't the important aspect of the story. The important thing to remember is that he was trying to set up a story where he could spread made-up dirt about Kamala Harris. But now you know who it was who was really there, so you can kind of point to that and say, and you can straighten out the thing with the book, too, the 2023 coffee table book, and get to the reality of things. If you want to have an argument with somebody about what that all was about. All right, time for us to exit for the day, just about. And, gosh, there's still a lot to get to, and good, because there's a whole week to get to it. And that'll give us a chance to discuss a couple of other weird things. By the way, can I just do one weird, stupid story that doesn't have anything to do with anything? Sure. Why not? From the Berkshire Eagle. This, an unexpected little piece here. I don't know. It struck me as odd and weird. The U.S. Secret Service, they're under some scrutiny lately. The U.S. Secret Service found its way into a hair salon near the Colonial Theater. Why is this happening? Kamala Harris is in town, and there's a Secret Service contingent there to make sure that everybody's safe. But instead, they're busy doing crimes, apparently. The U.S. Secret Service found its way into a hair salon near the Colonial Theater, where I think the rally was. Its owner says they didn't ask permission. That sounds like not that important, but hold on a second. If the U.S. Secret Service had simply asked, Alicia Powers would have been happy to let officers use her hair salon across the parking lot from the back of the Colonial Theater as a comfort station the day of Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. They needed bathrooms, right? They wanted to use the place for the bathrooms. Well, she said she would have done it. She says, I'm the kind of person who would have set up coffee and donuts for them if they had asked about it, but they didn't ask, or her landlord. Instead, they taped over a security camera on the back porch, broke into the salon, helped themselves to the bathroom, ate the mints on the counter, and then left without tidying up the bathroom or locking the back door again on the way back out. Amazing, just disrespect for everything. I mean, they needed bathrooms, so they said, let's break into a local business and then eat all the mints and use and go into the woods, get a porta-john, knock on another business door, anything? No, really? Use the cop cars? I can't believe that they couldn't think of anything but breaking into a local business and then just leaving it dirty and unlocked. Secret Service has some questions to answer for us.
NetworksRadio.com.
Plus, they let the president guy get shot.
Listening to Kagro.
The president guy.
With David Waldman.
All right, well, I know who he is. He's Donald Trump. And so does Justice Putnam, who brings you the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next right here on Netroots Radio, including stories like prosecutors everywhere are finally dropping the hammer on Trump's fake electors and co-conspirators. One of my favorite stories, and yet I spent almost no time on it. Egregious. We'll see you tomorrow.